So nursery rhymes are kind of cool and weird. They're about eggs sitting on walls and old men being thrown down the stairs and talking sheep and falling bridges. But it is their origin that makes them cooler, weirder, darker. Choose your adjective once I'm done. Before we begin though, I'd like to tell you that these are our best guesses. They're possible origins. We're not as sure about them as we are that The Raven was written by a dude called Edgar Allan Poe, which is why we need time machines. But that will make historians obsolete. That's not very nice. Moving on. There are also several origin stories out there. I picked the ones that make the most sense to me, so don't go all, I heard a different version, so you are wrong. Right. Humpty Dumpty. We tend to think of Humpty Dumpty as an egg who sat on a wall and then had a great fall and then nobody could put him back together again because, well, he's an egg. But that image of Humpty Dumpty is fairly new. It comes from Victorian era writer Lewis Carroll's book Through the Looking Glass. The term Humpty Dumpty was used in 15th century England to refer to a large, clumsy person. But according to the widely accepted origin story of the rhyme, Humpty Dumpty was not a person at all. So who was this Humpty Dumpty? First, some backstory. Between 1641 and 1652, civil war erupted in England with Oliver Cromwell and his parliamentarians, the Roundheads on one side and King Charles I and his royalists on the other. The rhyme Humpty Dumpty refers to a cannon put on top of a church wall during the siege of Colchester in 1648 by the Cavaliers, the royalists. The Roundheads succeeded in toppling the cannon, and no matter what the king's men or horses did, they couldn't put it back together again. Other theories state that the rhyme refers to King Charles I himself, the Great Fall referring to him being toppled from power by the parliamentarians, and no matter what the king's men did, they could do nothing to prevent his execution. London Bridge is falling down, falling down, falling down. Yeah, because a Viking pulled it down. At least that's what the most popular theory states. Sometime between 1009 and 1014 AD, it was pulled down by Olaf II of Norway. There are other theories which involve the immurement, or the entombing alive, of children, but there's no archaeological evidence to support it. Who is the fair lady? Well, it could refer to King Henry I's wife, Matilda of Scotland, who was in charge of building a series of bridges that would extend the main London to Colchester Road over a tributary of the River Thames. Baa Baa Black Sheep, have you any wool? First things first, this rhyme is probably not about the slave trade, but it has got a lot to do with sheep. If you haven't guessed. The wool trade was big in Middle Ages England, so big that local lords and bishops began to count their wealth in terms of how many sheep they had. So when King Edward I came back from his crusades, he decided to tax this trade to pay for all his crusading. And that is the wool tax the poem is based off of. 1/3 of the price of each bag of wool sold went to the king, 1/3 went to the church, and there was none left for the poor shepherd who did all the work. Makes sense when I tell you the last line of the poem till the 16th century was, "And none for the little boy who cries down the lane." Rock-a-bye baby. Right, so this poem is weird. Like, why are you putting a baby in a tree? What? But it is probably an allegorical poem referring to the political instability in England during the Glorious Revolution, in which King James II was overthrown and his daughter Mary and her husband William replaced him. See, King James II converted to Catholicism, and the Protestant majority of England feared that he would install a Catholic dynasty on the throne. It is speculated that the rhyme is sort of a death wish directed to King James II's son, who displaced his Protestant daughter Mary as heir to the throne. Another theory goes even further and says the winds refer to the Protestant wind that will blow over William's fleet to Britain. Goosey, goosey gander, where shall I wander? This little ditty comes from the time of King Henry VIII's reign. Henry broke away from the Catholic Church, for reasons, and installed the new Protestant Church of England. That led to a series of persecutions, but also people hiding their Catholic priests inside their houses in little priest holes. The family was found harboring a priest. The priest and the members of the family trying to hide the priest would be executed. And so, in a way, the poem was warning children about the unpleasant consequences of saying your prayers in Latin instead of in English. There you have it. The possible, not very pleasant origins of 5 nursery rhymes. I bet you'll think about them twice from now on.